Stop! You're gonna waste a lot of money if you don't know what shoe is best for you. I have a grand worth of racing shoes with me so that you don't end up stuck with the wrong type of footwear for what you're doing. Oddly enough, the best set of shoes might actually be the cheapest. You need shoes regardless of what discipline you're driving, in real life or the sim. I'm Looney Lou, welcome to Lou Cartoons. Today we're talking about shoes! So all of these shoes that I'm going to talk about have been road tested repeatedly on a 6-hour road trip that I've had to make on a regular basis over the last several years. They've also been tested in driver training sessions. So although yes, I'm using them in the sim today, this is going to reflect on how they work in real life as well. And for each set of footwear, I'm going to be using the same set of socks. If you stretch it enough, you can see the skin of your finger through it. That way I'm going to be judging the actual shoe itself and not the sock-shoe combo. Each set of footwear is going to be judged by the following metrics. The first one is going to make your life suck if you overlook it. And that is very simply getting them on and off. How quickly can you do it and how easily can you do so? The next category is extremely important for driver performance and is even more important than the first. That's overall comfort and security. How comfortable they are to wear once they are secured to your foot and how snug they stay to your foot. Do they move around much while using them? The next metric isn't really obvious, and a lot of noobs don't realize how important it is until their foot is numb. And that is the action of your heel. It's basically the ease of which you can roll your foot when applying the pedal. Is it comfortable to keep your foot in this position for extended periods of time? The benchmark for that metric is your foot in a sock. Next up is the most common factor that people consider when they think about a driving shoe. How thick the actual rubber at the bottom is, how well you can feel the pedals, and how easily you can work them. In short, tactility, not tactical. As you evolve into a pro, you're going to find yourself stressing about this next metric, and that's long-term durability. Over time, how well do they stay together? Okay, the next one is by far the most important metric, and that is style points. Is it sexy? Would your friends envy you, or are they going to roast you? Be honest. Now, I know the last metric is what everyone is most concerned about. How many monies does it cost? That is going to be its own standalone metric, just because I want you to look at each individual product and compare them as is without thinking much about cost. Like, I want you to pick what's right for you, regardless of price, if that makes sense. I will be stating the price for each one at the end of the video, in Canadian dollars specifically. For each of these metrics, I'll assign a score of 0 through 3. 0, absolute garbage. 1, not awesome, but it works. 2, leaves something more to be desired. 3, could not get better than this. All right, first up, we got the Vans Sk8 high tops. They are canvas specifically. This is going to be important later on. As far as getting them on and off, big fat 0. It's honestly a pain in the ass. I find you have to retighten them every time, and the sole doesn't really come out. Even if you go digging for it, like it's glued down there. You can't take the sole out to wrap the laces underneath. It's weird. Once your foot's in, you would have to wrap the laces behind your ankle if you want that clean, like, no lace look. And even once you do adjust the laces just right, you got to use shoehorn to get your foot in. If you don't tighten them properly, they loosen very easily, very quickly. I find that incredibly annoying. Maybe I'm just daft. Next, we got overall comfort and security. Once they are on properly, it's actually pretty hard to get them off. Like, I can't just kick them off, which is quite nice. They don't roll around too much and they do mold to your foot fairly well. Next is heel action. That's a 1 of 3. It is a skate shoe, so yeah, right out of the box, it's not going to be awesome. Look at this. You can see how square of an edge this is. So all of the weight of your foot is focused through that single point, which will make your heel go numb after an hour. On top of that, look at it from this point. You can see how, like, relatively rounded, and just ignore this little lump here. That's the label. But, like, you can see most of the weight from your foot is going to be focused on this relatively small area. That's going to make your foot go numb. It's a very small spot for all the weight of your foot to go down when it's resting naturally. So yeah, after an hour or so of driving a car on the highway with no cruise control, your foot's gonna go numb. You can roll your foot just fine, but the problem is it's weird to explain. It's like a teeter-totter motion, sort of. I don't know how to explain it. Because it's such a sharp point, it's not really a smooth foot application. It's like there's a tipping point where there comes a point where your foot just kind of falls more easily. It's not something you really notice in the short term, but after, like, extended wear and extended use of these things, it's a factor that you'll learn to feel. Having that weird tipping point just gives the muscles in your foot and your leg just more crap to deal with. That it takes a lot of energy, surprisingly. Okay, now we got sole thickness. This is a 1 of 3. A 0 would be like a super thick, super stiff mountaineering, like, hiking boot. With this, you can feel the pedals, but, like, it's barely. When using a brake pedal that doesn't have a vacuum assist or a load cell brake pedal, these will protect your foot just fine. But as far as the clutch and the gas go, you can barely feel them. Heel towing is also a bit weird because of the square edge that's here. This when getting pushed upwards for the heel-toe movement, I find it gets caught on the gas pedal sometimes. That being said, looking at the way the rubber connects to the actual like construction of the body of the shoe, the side doesn't get caught, which is really nice. Long-term durability, I'm going to give these a good 2 out of 3. I haven't had this specific set for very long, but I have worked with a dude who had a set exactly like these. We hung out almost every day skateboarding for a year. I had a longboard, he had a penny board, and I gotta say, the way he boards is pretty aggressive. I'm surprised they didn't fall apart sooner than they did. With a heavy wear, I witnessed that they lasted like a good year, maybe a little longer. Just like any skate shoe, it's gonna fall apart if it's used the way it's meant to. Now, style points. This is a solid 3 of 3. I'm a high top guy, and I don't know what it is about the white Vans, but there's just something magical about them. They're just hella stylish, man. As an overall feel for them, I do not like these for driving. They are the shoe I'm gonna be primarily using, as they are white, and that makes it really easy for you guys to see my foot movements. The only reason I wear them continuously on camera is for aesthetics. Now, all of that being said, the next shoe might surprise you, and that's the Sk8 black leather one. They're leather. It's a slightly different version of the same thing as the canvas shoes. Getting them on and off is a solid 2 of 3, guys. Look at it. With this, you can see the sole, and you can see how you can actually pull it out. Because of that, you can tuck the laces down the side and actually wrap it like underneath the sole of the foot. So then that way there's no excess and it doesn't really loosen all that much because it's fastened securely. You can also tie them on if you really want, and they're very versatile. Plus, you don't have to use the top eyelets if you don't want. It does take a bit of finagling, but you can get both shoes on in less than 10 seconds. Overall comfort and security, that's a good 3 of 3. Look, even treating these things like slip-ons, they don't really move around. Very seldom while wearing these have I had my foot slide, and whenever it has been, it's because I'm walking on a steep hill. Driving-wise, they are very secure. Heel action is a good 2 of 3. The sole's a little bit thinner than the white ones, but you can see it's still got that fairly square and fairly like narrow area where the weight of your foot is going to rest. Your heel's still going to go numb after an hour driving a car with no cruise control. But because the sole is a little bit thinner than the white ones, it makes that whole teeter-totter action a little bit less extreme. It's just a little bit smoother for pedal application, which segues nicely into the sole thickness and tactility factor. Out of the box, I'd say it's a good 2 of 3. It does get better the more the sole wears down and the thinner it gets. Obviously, the more you can feel your pedals. Plus, once that rubber is broken in, it's a lot more flexible, and therefore it allows you to feel and move your foot a little bit more. For actual daily driving and just driving in general, I would strongly recommend these. Long-term durability is a good 2 of 3. They're not indestructible steel-toe boots, but they are made of leather, and they are a pretty solid construction as is. So yes, as a skate shoe does, when you use it hard, it's going to fall apart after a year. Style points? 3 out of 3. It just looks slick. Something about it just tickles my brain right. It's something about that black suede, that black leather, you know? Overall, once these things are worn in, these are my personal go-to for real life and everyday drive. If I know the weather is going to be questionable and I'm going to be getting in and out of the car a lot, yeah, I'm rocking these. All right, next we got the Puma Redons, bungee specifically. You can get a Velcro version of the same thing. There's really not much to say about these ones. They're just good, you know? Getting them on and off, 3 to 3. It's a bungee. Your foot it slips in and out, no problem. Overall comfort and security, 3 out of 3. They stay planted to your foot even though it's just a bungee keeping it on. They do move around a very little bit because they're not laced up, but it's not enough for it to be a problem, you know? They are a very snug fit, just like they're meant to. Heel action is a solid 3 to 3. Out of all the shoes we're talking about today, this has easily got the best heel. Look at this. Look at this. You can see how round that is. Check that out. And on top of that, look how wide that is. That's awesome. Let's do a little comparison for a second. Worst, best. Look at the heels. Look at the shape. Look at the contours. You can see how this one is a relatively like small, like super rounded area, and this one is super flat in comparison. On top of that, look at this. You can see how drastic of a difference that is. Let's see. Let's get a feel for this. When I put my fingers in here, they are about like yay thick. The point I'm trying to make is that there's actually quite a bit of padding around the heel, which makes your foot super comfy. My foot has never gone numb in these, and I have worn these extensively. Like those 6-hour road trips I was talking about, typically these will just live in my back seat, and anytime I know I'm going to be driving for an hour or more, I'll just swap into these and drive with that. That super steep like teeter-totter lever action that I was talking about is basically non-existent with these. It's arguably smoother than using your foot in a sock kind of thing because it's so well designed. Sole thickness and tactility, 3 to 3. The way the soles wrap up around the side is just... it couldn't get much better than this. Look at this. You can see the sole, you can see the base, and you can see how it wraps up around the side. And you can even see how it wraps on top just an ever so slight little bit, and there is like virtually no lip. Like it's a very smooth, very almost seamless construction, if that makes sense. As a result, it doesn't get caught on anything. One thing that I'm not a huge fan about these is how the sole is actually textured. That is definitely one thing I will actually say the Vans do a better job at, is having like a smoother, more consistent sole. These like weird ridges and stuff, they kind of mess up the feel of the pedal sometimes. It's odd to explain. You just gotta try them on. That being said, the texture isn't enough of a problem to take a point away. When I initially bought these, I was thinking, oh, cool, like, I'll bet pro drivers use that for something, for gripping. I don't know. I was a noob then, okay? But over time, I've come to realize, like, no, it just looks cool. That's about it. Long-term durability, I'm gonna give a 2 out of 3. I'm actually not 100% sure how well these things are gonna stand the test of time. It is a false leather, so it's not the greatest of materials, but I'm not holding that against it. I've been doing my best to take care of these over the past, 3 years? Yeah. And I've pretty much used them only for driving. Right before sitting down to film this, I did walk them around the block just to see how they feel for comfort, and they're actually fairly comfortable walking shoes. I wouldn't want to run or sprint in them, or weightlift really. The sole is super thin and super rounded. Here you can see all of the sole and all of its weird texture things. As far as style points go, I'm going to give them a 2 out of 3. I have gotten some pretty curious comments about them, but I've also been told to give my granddaddy his slippers back. They're not ugly, they're just not awesome. I'm just a high top guy. Okay, the next 2 sets of footwear I'm really excited to talk to you guys about because they're actually kind of hard to get your hands on. The first set is Tracker 2 FGs. These are a type of hiking boot, and they are wild, let me tell you. I got these about 2 years ago, and at the time I was doing some pretty intense hiking. Because they're so thin at the bottom, I got myself an off-the-shelf set of orthotics just to take the edge off. Just general off-the-shelf orthotics, nothing horribly fancy. You can see all the details, you can see the website. I do recommend these. They're flexible in some parts, but this mid part, it's like a saddle. Pretty solid. It's definitely thicker around the heel and midpoint of the foot than it is towards the toe. This is very thin. In filming this, I actually did 2 runs, one with orthotics and one without. And although it's a little bit different, it's more or less the same. Obviously, without the stiff orthotics, you can feel the pedal a bit better. So, ease of getting them on and off. That's a good 2 out of 3. It does take a couple minutes to get them on, but it takes a minute to get them off. Plus, check this out. They're very versatile with how you can fasten them to your foot. There's a little hoop here in the tongue, which is mega clutch. And on top of that, if you look at the side, like these are hooks. That is awesome. You don't have to do them all up if you don't want. The hooks just make it so easy to do up quickly. Like you don't have to worry about loosening everything, sliding your foot out, and then sliding your foot in, and then doing up each individual like crisscross, whatever. No, you can just like quickly whoop, 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 get them up. It's weird to explain without a demo, but trust me, the hooks are clutch. For hiking, it's very easy to customize like your actual ankle support. And even if you don't use any of the hooks, it still works great because it's only fastened like at your ankle, right? Basically turns into an ankle shoe. Overall comfort and security, that's a good 2 of 3. These things are more or less just leather slippers with a texturized rubber sole. They are super lightweight, very breathable, and while seated, they are very comfortable. If you do, for whatever reason, have to get up and walk for any length of time, they do have quite a lot of grip for trail and gravel situations. But remember, they are basically slippers. Believe me when I say you can feel literally every pebble beneath your foot. Like without orthotics in, if there was a stone between your foot and the gas pedal or the brake pedal and you're stomping on it, you're gonna feel it. Heel action is a good 3 to 3. Like look how round this is. Like for comparison, we have the Vans, and then we have these guys, and you can see the difference in how square the heel is. You can see that these are a lot rounder, and as a result, rolling your foot is going to be a lot easier. They are still kind of narrow in this sense, so it's a relatively small window, but like it's not a sharp edge. There's still like a bit of padding there, and the weight of your foot is more distributed around a slightly larger surface. Your foot is going to go numb after about an hour of driving because there's 0 padding. However, if your foot is constantly moving, and like in a racing scenario, you're going to be fine. The blood flow is going to keep moving and everything will be hunky-dory. All right, sole thickness and tactility. 3 out of 3. As we said, these things are so thin you can feel every little rock beneath your foot. The way these things are textured is very nice as far as pedal movement goes. You can feel the pedal very consistently, but the texture isn't enough to really mess with the sensors of your foot. A word of caution though, if you are going to use these for spirited driving, there is a little bit of a lip here. Unlike the Vans where it's a nice smooth connection, you can see right around here, there is an ever so slight lip from where the sole is glued to the leather. It may not look like much while there's no foot in the shoe, but you can see that like putting a little bit of pressure, you can see how the rubber actually sticks out from the leather just a little bit. That lip is just enough to get caught on the underside of a pedal if you're not careful. Long-term durability, 2 out of 3. They're about the same as the Vans in full honesty. Again, it is leather, and again, it is like a rubber sole. There's not much going on there. To be honest, I'm surprised that the sole isn't flat by now. With the amount of hiking I was doing in these things, I was expecting it to be way more worn than it is now. As you can see right here, there is some pretty serious separation just from general wear and tear. That's where my foot flexes, and there is just natural delamination. Yeah, see, look, right there. That's only going to get worse with time as I continue wearing them. At one point in time, I was climbing the backside of an old truck, and the lip here actually got caught like on the metal bit of the truck, and it tore a bit. Again, using shoe glue, I was able to get it back together. Besides that, the leather everywhere else and the actual canvas like on the mid part of the foot is pretty solid. Style points, 3 out of 3. I have gotten a lot of comments and a lot of questions about these boots. They do look slick as f***. I don't know if anyone remembers those Bone comics, but when I'm rocking these, that's how my foot feels. I just feel like I look like a cartoon character. Speaking of looking like a toon, you'll have to excuse this side of the mustache. It doesn't like wax for some reason. Next up, we have the awesomest driving shoe that I'll bet you have never heard of. And these bad boys are the Piloti Apex. Like, check these out. These are just, they're beautiful. They are very slick. Like that suede leather, it's, oh man, it's gorgeous. And the sole. Look at the bottom. Going onto the Piloti website, they literally explain how every aspect of the shoe is inspired from a car. Like, look at the leather on the inside. Oh my god, is that gorgeous. Made in Portugal. Ah, and if you sniff them, yeah, that's some stinky feet. You can tell that's real leather. Okay, enough hype. Let's get to the scoring. Ease of getting them on and off, 1 of 3. If you want to get slick with it, like the fancy Vans that I presented earlier, you can take a bit of the sole out and you can wrap your laces underneath if you really want. In which case, you're more or less treating them like slip-ons, but I feel like that's kind of morally wrong to do with these. Overall comfort and security, full points, 3 of 3. They are very comfortable, and once they are tied on, they do not move around very easily while driving or walking. It's a very snug fit, and it's very comfy. Even when standing or walking for a while, they are really nice as there is a bit of cushioning in the sole. Heel action, 3 out of 3. This is very rounded, very similar to the Pumas. It's a very happy medium between the Pumas and the white Vans. Holding them next to the Pumas, you can see that they actually have a, like, the Pumas have a more rounded heel. Tricky to get a good angle of that, but I think you get the idea. Here's the other interesting thing. Look at this. You can see how the Pumas have a much wider heel base, and then the Pilotis actually have a rounded heel base, very similar to the Vans. You can see how square the heel is of the Vans compared to the Pilotis. That being said, you can't compare these two shoes. These are worlds apart. This is a driving shoe first, meant for everyday comfort. This is meant for everyday skateboarding with style in mind, I guess. This one's also stylish. I don't know. Like, these two things are worlds apart. Like, you cannot compare these two. It actually feels morally wrong just like holding them in the same frame, to be honest. Holding the Pilates next to the tracker heels, you can see how the trackers actually have a slightly sharper edge to them. They're also pretty similar in shape as far as this roundness aspect is concerned. I feel like the Pumas are meant for like keeping 1 foot on the brake and 1 foot on the gas so that you can just have that quick application because the heels are so wide. The Pilates are more meant for, like, I guess, dancing with a clutch. Because the heel's more rounded, it makes it a lot easier for your foot to switch from pedal to pedal. Even if your foot's resting in the same place on the highway for extended periods of time, it's still fairly comfortable. It just offers a slightly different benefit from the Pumas. Now, sole thickness and tactility. It does have a bit of a thicker sole, and it is a little bit more cushion. These guys have the thinnest sole. These guys have the next thinnest sole. These guys have the thickest of those 3, but you can still feel the pedals just fine. You can also apply loads of pressure to the brake pedal without getting hurt. And because the bottom is completely flat, pedal feel is extremely consistent. Long-term durability, I'm going to give these guys a 2 out of 3 because I'm honestly not really sure. I've only had these for a few months, so I don't really know how these are going to pan out. I've only worn them a handful of times, but the times I have worn them, it is definitely a thicker sole construction than the Tracker FGs, but you can see, look at this, the sole is actually like stitched to the leather siding. That's really Gucci. It's not just glued on there, like it is like properly sewn in which is amazing. Plus, look at the stitch quality of the leather. Like, you can see each individual thread, and obviously that's going to wear with time. In full honesty, man, like, these feel solid. When I press the leather down like this, you'll see it's not folding at the edge of the rubber here. There's actually a plastic lip, and the edge of it is right there. And you can feel it, let's see, you can feel it around the heel as well. Like, it's got a very sturdy construction back here. It's got a very sturdy feel. Style points, 3 to 3. Yeah, they're sexy. You're high if you think they're not. Like, these are easily the grooviest and comfiest driving shoes that I own. Okay, now here's the scores and how they compare. A perfect score is 18. That's like the godsend shoe, but those don't exist. Canvas Vans, score of 11. Next, we have a tie of the leather Vans and the Piloti Apex scoring at 14. Next, we got the Tracker FGs scoring at 15. And on the top of the podium, we have the Puma Redons at 16 points. All right, so now that we got overall awesomeness addressed, let's talk about money. Bottom of the list for cheapest, we have the white Canvas Vans, running at about 90 bucks. Not bad bang for buck. Next up, we have the black leather van, running at about $1.20. After that, we got the Pilates. I got lucky and I got them off of a buddy of mine. I paid $120 Canadian. Judging by their website, I'm fairly certain he paid well over $300 Canadian, but I'm a little bit scared to ask. All right, next we got the Tracker FGs. You are never gonna guess how much these things cost. In 2023, when I initially got them, I paid $317. It's a bit nuts for a leather slipper. Finally, we have our highest scoring shoe, the Puma Redons at $110. That's right, 110 bucks. It's the second cheapest one and arguably the best one for this application. Now, full disclosure, as soon as the camera turns off and I boot up the sim, I'm reaching for my Pumas. Whenever I'm going to a public sim event or an asphalt track day, I'm rocking the Pilates. If I'm going to a track day where I know it's going to be off-road and gravel and dirt and stuff like that, maybe a bit messy, I'm rocking the leather Vans. For most of my videos, you're going to see me wearing the white Vans. For one reason, and one reason only. Aesthetics. The white nicely contrasts the black background, and it makes it easier for you guys to see my foot movements out of the corner of your eye when you're watching my telemetry and my driving and all that stuff. I thought this through. So there, if there's a different kind of shoe that you would like to recommend, comment it down below so that everyone else can get some good ideas. What might be the best shoe for you may not be listed in this video, and that's okay. If you do decide you want to try buying a set of one of the shoes that we've talked about today, I have links in the description to all of them. So if you use the link I provide in the description just to get to the Amazon website, you don't even have to buy the shoe. You can buy like a set of earrings or socks or whatever. By no extra cost to you, it actually gives me a percentage of what you pay. So by helping yourself, you're helping me too. Mutually beneficial, you see? I really hope that the information we've covered today has proven useful to you. I'm Looney Lou. Stay tuned, my goons. We'll see you real soon. Peace. That way I'm going to be judging the actual shoe itself and not the sock-shoe combo. Shoe-sock combo. Shock-shoe. That way I'm going to be judging the shoe itself and not the shoe-sock combo.